All right, today is February 26, 2025. This is a meeting of the Container Storage Interface community. As a reminder, this meeting is public recorded and posted on YouTube. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. Ben, you want to go with the first agenda item?
You may remember last year, Rohit and I cooked up a proposal for statefully tracking whether a volume was mounted or not in order to get around issues of like what happens when you're halfway through the mount, or sorry, halfway through the make FS, and then the node crashes or something. We're trying to resurrect that proposal and actually work on it because it continues to be a problem for us. Uh, I I wanted to have another iteration of the design doc written up before this meeting, and that didn't happen. But the the main issue that we're sort of struggling with is how we eliminate a possible race between like a volume being cloned or a snapshot of a volume being taken with the makefs process happening, right? So today it's entirely possible to create a volume and then both create a workload that attaches to that volume and create a snapshot of the volume at the same time, such that the snapshot may or may not happen before, during, or after the makefs is done, right? And then when that volume gets cloned, it may or may not start off with a file system on it, or it might be blank. You just don't know. And the current guidance is that CSI plugins just have to figure this out.
I'm sorry,
Um,
Ben, I missed something. So you're saying create a volume from snapshot, there's a race between that and create snapshot? Is that what you mean?
no,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the, the it creates snapshot races with like a node publish volume, a node stage volume, right? So that this is a brand new volume.
Before the volume is, before the volume
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
I see.
It's a brand new volume. It's being attached to a node. It's blank. So normally what happens is the SP will do makefs to put a file system on it.
Mm-hmm.
If while that process is proceeding, there's also a snapshot happening at exactly the same time, there is no way to know
Mm.
whether the snapshot happens before, during, or after the makefs. It just
Okay.
happens sometime.
But there's not even data there, right? So I mean, the snapshot is not
Well,
exact, isn't it?
correct, but
Uh,
but like well, okay, I should say there probably isn't data, but there could be. And again, it's because there's no ordering of these operations, right? All of the attaching happens.
if you're saying that, let's say the volume was there before, somebody maybe write some data and detached it. Now they're trying to attach it again. Then
No,
before,
no, no. So imagine the case where you issue the snapshot first, but because things take time in Kubernetes,
right?
a pod gets created and the pod gets scheduled to a node, and the node plugin does a node stage and a node publish, and the
Okay.
container starts running and like writes a byte of data to the volume before the snapshot actually happens, right?
Mhm.
That could just happen, right? Because we don't control the ordering of any of this. So
Mhm.
now you have a volume with a snapshot and that has a byte of user data in it that you should not lose. So like if that snapshot later gets cloned into a new volume, the expectation would be that byte of user data is still there. Maybe like I mean because if the user created the snapshot before they created the workload, maybe that's not the user's expectation. It's just that
Mhm.
you know because we don't order any of this stuff, um, it's sort of a best effort on the part of this storage plugin, like what they should do, right? And
Okay.
for all the plugins I'm aware of, like you just when you do the node publish or node stage, you take a look at what you've got. If it looks like it's got a file system, you say, well, I think it's got a file system. I'm going to try to mount it, and like and you hope for the best. Like that's literally how it works today. Um,
Mhm.
if if you happen to have a snapshot that was taken like halfway through the makefs process, then there's like no super block, and the driver could notice that there's no super block and say like, well, there's garbage on this volume, but I'm going to overwrite it and just do makefs again. I mean, it's a thorny problem, right? So
Mhm.
so our proposal was have Kubernetes keep track of like whether the key thing is whether there is user data on the volume or not. And like that bit changes from 0 to 1 the moment kubelet hands the volume off to a workload, right? Before kubelet gives the volume to a workload, it's always safe to assume the volume has no user data. You could zero it, you could overwrite it with garbage, you could redo makefs. It's harmless as long as it hasn't been handed over to user workload. The moment it has been handed over to user workload, you have to assume like, okay, now the data in that volume is valuable to someone and I must not lose it. So the proposal for format tracking is to try to capture that transition of when the after the volume is formatted and before it's handed over to a workload, you set a bit in the Kubernetes API that says this volume is definitely formatted and it's being handed over to user workload now, so don't reformat it. But because that bit doesn't, because any snapshot created of that volume, you can't know if it was taken before or after that bit gets set. You have two options. One is you have the storage plugin node, you have the node plugin talk to the controller plugin and say like, I'm done formatting now, and have the controller plugin internally flip its own bit that says, okay, any snapshots created after time X could contain user data and therefore must not be reformatted. Any snapshots taken before time X, safe to reformat.
So are you proposing to add some new status or condition on PVC itself? Because
Yeah, well,
kubelet,
the stateful format proposal that we proposed last year, it includes that. It includes a new
okay.
field on the PV that reflects
PV or PVC? Kubelet does not read PV. I think it does not have access to PV. It can only
yeah.
read PVC
Well,
now, I think.
so we've got to figure that out. But the point is, kubelet is the one that knows whether node publish is done successfully and whether the workload has started, right? Kubelet is the only thing that knows that instant in time has passed. And that's the instant in time at which you have to flip this bit. In order to capture the essence of like this volume is formatted. So the challenge with snapshots and clones is because they happen on the controller side and kubelet can't influence them. You don't know what order they occurred in, and so we have two proposals. One proposal is like create some callback so that kubelet will stop. Like normally it just goes from node publish volume succeeded, start the workload. The proposal would be pause for a minute and like manipulate some API state that causes a CSI controller RPC to get invoked and wait for that RPC to return successfully before proceeding to start the workload so that you can ensure that you have a sequencing where node publish succeeds, then you do the callback, then the workload starts, right? That's the order you would want it to happen in. Then you can reliably know whether the snapshot happened before or after a workload got a hold of the volume. The other proposal is to actually inhibit creation of snapshots for volumes that have never been used, right? So if you create an empty PVC and someone tries to create a snapshot of it, you just say, nope, I'm not even going to take that snapshot
But
because
then we do
it's
support.
unformatted.
Yeah, but we do support. We do support creating snapshot of a PVC that is not attached, right?
Well, we do, but the results are undefined, right?
Right.
You're allowed to do it, but like what happens with that volume? It's like who knows? It's best effort situation again. So the argument is like no sane user is currently using that functionality because why would they, right? It's creating a snapshot of a volume that has never been used is pointless, and sort of preventing it from happening won't break anyone. That's the argument that Rohit was making, and it's simpler to inhibit snapshot creation than to introduce a callback mechanism where kubelet will stop its current workflow, cause some controller to call some CSI sidecar to call a CSI RPC, and then start the workload. Like that's a bigger change, I think, than just saying, no, we just won't take the snapshot until we're sure it's formatted. And it's similar with clones. You would just say, no, we're just not going to clone a volume that hasn't been formatted yet. That would be a simpler change. So those are the two alternatives we're exploring, and we're looking for feedback. And so uh, I'm curious how you guys feel about both of those options, or if you can think of a third option. Uh, and I'm sorry I don't have like this all written down in a detailed form that is easy to digest because it's but we have the old proposal the Rohit wrote that's still linked somewhere. I was going to try to update it with this new thinking and to try to tease out this exact issue so that it's easy to understand.
So do you actually run into some customer issues? Because I have not seen this as a problem because snapshot
Yes,
is
yes.
mostly for like backup vendors, right? So I have not seen this being reported, something like this. So
Not the snapshot issue. No, the issue that we
okay,
experience is that MakeFS can take a long time if you're using like an encrypted volume and you have to do like a LUX format and an ext4 format. And if the volume is like terabytes in size, like there's a significant amount of IO that has to be performed just to do
Mhm.
the MakeFS in the LUX format. And in
Uh,
a
so
highly dynamic environment, like it's it does happen that sometimes the nodes just get rebooted in the middle of that process, and you're left with volumes where the volume has date. It's not all zeros because it's half formatted, but you can't hand it to a workload because like you
right.
can't mount it. So like it, then you're stuck with like what do I do with this volume, right? And you very often the result is like you just get a hanging, volume stage just fails in a loop forever. And the workload never comes up, and then a user complains and they say this is no good. But changing the code to just like aggressively reformat the volume would introduce a risk that you could delete user data and cause data corruption, which is even worse. So so it's like you have two bad choices, and we're trying to come up with a technical solution that keeps you out of these troublesome corner cases.
I, I guess that okay, so what is their use case of taking snapshot? Is that for like if there's a disaster happens, then they have all
Well,
these what
no,
different ways for snapshot.
the issue is that like if we introduced a bit into the PV or PVC, whatever, that says like volume formatted, volume not formatted, then you would need a mechanism to set that bit to true if the volume was a clone of another volume which was formatted. Otherwise, if you set it to false, like the expected behavior would be that volume gets reformatted and you lose all the data. So like you have to like if we introduce this bit, then you have to have a way to set it
I think, sorry,
on
I
new
think that
volumes.
the part that I missed is I mean, right, I got your point about, you want to indicate whether it's formatted or not, but uh, why snapshot here, the, I mean, the option two saying you just to stop, we don't support taking snapshot, if
Well,
it's not, but I guess I
it,
missed some,
it's an attempt to control the timing, right? Because you don't know if the snapshot occurred before or after a format. The only ways to resolve that problem are one, to introduce a timing interlock with some sort of callback where kubelet stops. A CSI sidecar calls the plugin and says, I'm doing this. And then kubelet unfreezes and continues on. Or to just say you never, ever, ever take a snapshot before you get to the format process, right?
I
Those are
think
the only two ways
what
to
Ching might be
ensure.
wondering is the reboot case that you talked about,
Yeah,
where format is halfway done and the restart of the machine happens and it results in a corrupt volume.
yeah.
Option two wouldn't help with that, right?
No, no. I mean, the base proposal helps with that case, right? Because in that case, you haven't reached the point where node publish has succeeded, so you haven't set the bit so that when that node comes back up or some new node tries to attach to the volume, it can just look and see, oh, this volume was never attached to a workload. Any data in the volume must be the results of a prior failed format, and I'm just going to start over back at the beginning and make sure that it's formatted correctly, right? If you have an external source of truth that said that
That
says,
makes sense. So I think
I assure you, it's not user data.
what might have been confusing is that we were seeing these as mutually exclusive, that it was either this or this as
right.
the
Right?
path
Yeah,
of
yeah,
moving
yeah.
forward.
No. So the bit is in all the versions of the proposal, right? You have to track whether it's formatted or not. The 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 optional parts of the proposal are how do you ensure that controller operations, which can copy the volume, which is either a clone or a snapshot, either occur definitely before or definitely after the format, and know which case you're in, right? Because today it's impossible to know, because they're two separate clocks. So you have to have something that interlocks the two, and the two options I aware of are some sort of callback or some sort of blanket lockout of snapshots before the bit gets flipped, and clones.
Got it. So basically, you're saying like, hey, if we have some way to be able to preserve a bit in the PVPVC that says a volume is mounted, that eliminates the main problem that you have around the restart issue, but snapshots get tricky because snapshot can happen at any point. And if you have a snapshot that occurs very early, it could be on a effectively incomplete volume. And at that point, what do you preserve? What's the bit about the mount?
Yes,
Um,
yes,
can we
yes.
persist the same bit that we store in the PVPVC? So when the snapshot happens, whatever the value of the bit is, we store that, or
Yeah. I mean, you can, but the problem is it doesn't it doesn't tell you when it actually happened, right? If you just take
see.
the copy of the bit that you had, like snapshots can take multiple seconds
Yeah.
to take. And like when the snapshot actually happens, it could be in a different state by that time. So you need a full round trip into the driver that says, I'm taking or I the format is done now, and
And I
and
guess the
then
one option is basically always assume that it is valid and just set it so.
assume what is valid.
Assume
The
any snapshot that was successful is valid. So your bit that indicates that the mount was complete for a snapshot will always be true.
Okay,
And
but then if someone snapshots a volume before it was fully formatted or
so
when
be
it's
it.
just full of zeros,
Yep.
that then when you try to mount that, it will be marked as this is a formatted volume, and
Yep.
the driver will look and say like, I can't mount this. This is
Right.
garbage.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's intended behavior. Like you took the snapshot too early.
yeah. But like today, what would happen is you would just do makeFS and you get an empty volume, and your
I see.
workload would be happy,
So it could be
right?
potentially seen as a regression.
Yeah, yeah. No. I mean, and you can blame the user and say, well, that's your fault, user. You shouldn't have done that. But it's like I'm sure that there's people doing this, um, because yeah, people do everything. So like but both options seem troublesome to me, and that's why I wanted to sort of toss the ideas out here and get some discussion going.
Yeah.
Um, Probably we need to bring this to SIG storage as well, but this is definitely going to be a CSI proposal. In fact, it already is, right? We proposed it last year and we just didn't carry it forward, because we got busy with other stuff.
Yeah.
Last year, did I have last year? I actually, if you
Yeah, I remember discussing this last year.
remember.
Yeah. That Rohit wrote up a doc. We shared
Okay.
it during one of the meetings. We sort of socialized this idea, and then we just didn't follow up. So I'm following up now.
Okay, yeah, maybe let's write up the or update the cap and bring it to SIG storage and let's talk through it.
Okay. Yeah. That's all I've got for today.
So there's another topic, just quickly, we only have a few minutes left, Ben. So this, I think Sunny may have reached out to you, regarding a proposal that you worked a long time ago, for one driver to support multiple capabilities. Do you
Oh,
still, yeah,
well, yeah, no, so yes, on Slack, she contacted me, and um, I, my recollection of the idea at that time, because I was at NetApp and I remember coming up with this, you could effectively write two CSI drivers in one code base, right? So from Kubernetes perspective, it's two separate CSI drivers. You have two separate CSI driver objects. You have two different volume. I forget what the string, the volume type or volume driver type or whatever. But you could have one driver that basically implements all of that.
So you mean your proposal does not suggest any CSI spec changes? I thought you
Right,
had
right.
some changes. Maybe I remember wrong. I thought you actually proposed some
Well,
CSI driver. I mean, sorry, CSI
well,
spec changes for that. No?
your memory may be better than mine.
Okay, I don't know if you still have, I don't know if you still have that doc because now there is one issue, right, that she's trying to solve, and I'm like, I thought maybe we should look at the Ben's proposal.
Okay. Well, so yes, the one that I just mentioned now, the thinking definitely was like you don't need to change CSI. You could just implement two CSI drivers to get the behavior you want. You might be right that like we didn't like that idea, and so we started to explore
Yeah, I thought you
something
had
in the
something.
CSI spec.
I thought you have some a way to report the capabilities, but that's been so long. So I don't know if you can still find you probably have a doc somewhere. I don't know if you can still find them. I know that
Well, I
this was
mean,
a long time ago.
so I was gonna say that would have been at NetApp. So like NetApp
Oh,
has
so
the
you
doc.
don't, it's the doc.
Unless it was something public, unless it was like a GitHub
Oh,
issue or
okay,
something where I wrote it up on GitHub.
okay,
If it's a NetApp doc, then NetApp has it. I
okay.
do specifically recall like the problem that we had when I was at NetApp was NFS volumes and iSCSI volumes have some like fundamentally different behaviors,
Right.
especially around the the ability to chown, right? Because the
Okay.
chowning that used to happen, like it was fine if it was iSCSI, but if it was NFS, it would like literally fail. And so we wanted to
hmm
at NetApp, we wanted to be able to say, like, set this option if it's iSCSI and set this option if it's NFS. But we didn't want like the CSI layer to know that to think it was two different drivers. You want to say, no, it's one driver. It just has two different behaviors. Um, and yeah, we explored a bunch of different options, but it never we never found a satisfactory answer.
Yeah,
So
it's a difficult problem. Yeah. I think right now there's trying to solve this problem of attach limits. I think there are different attach limits for I think for different type of disks for GCPD side. And for our driver, we have the similar problem as you. Our like block and file volume has different attach limits. So
but
yeah.
like but why not go the route of the two different? I mean, there's obviously some disadvantages to going
Right.
with the two different CSI drivers, but like there's a lot of advantages too. And I can't remember if there was any disadvantage that was like a showstopper kind of a disadvantage. I feel like, I mean, it feels well, okay. Yes, the main disadvantage was it's not backwards compatible. There is no way to upgrade from a previous state where it's one CSI driver to splitting into two. Like if you started from the situation where you had two CSI drivers, one for NFS, one for iSCSI, it would be fine. But if you had an existing CSI driver with existing production workloads and then you decided to split it, you'd have no upgrade path and your users would be stranded and they'd be annoyed. So that was the main thing that killed it at NetApp, I think. That particular idea was that you couldn't upgrade users.
Okay. Yeah,
But
this probably two driver probably won't solve the problem from Sunny side because she's like having different disk types, right? So you don't want every disk type have a different driver. That will be more than two, I think. That'd be too much.
yeah,
So I
well,
get
the original any proposal I came up with around this topic would have been a really long time ago, like 4 or 5 years
okay.
back. So
Okay.
we'd have to dig deep into the history to find. I don't know if we were recording meetings that long ago
Oh, that
or
will be
taking notes, but we could dig way
probably
back into like
yeah. It might be somewhere
this is
in
like
the some
the
agenda doc. Maybe we'll have that somewhere. I just don't remember which where do you think we talked about it in this meeting or would this be storage meeting or CSI implementation meeting?
I feel
We
like
can
this was
search.
this was before San Diego. Like
Oh, God, that's like
this is
pure
like
90.
2019,
Oh,
2018.
okay.
Like
But do you remember which meeting do you think we might have this? It's like CSI this meeting or is this storage meeting or some, because we can search for like agenda doc and see if there are any notes.
yeah.
But
Uh,
anyway, if I mean
no,
if
no, I would
you
just
remember
go
any,
back to the pre-COVID times of
okay.
2019 and search that era because yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it was after that. I think it was before that.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's fine, yeah. All right.
All right, and we're at our time.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Take care.
Okay,
All
thank you.
right, bye, Saad. Thank you.